gorgeous individuals, it's Kav here, and today it's time for episode 3 of Quarterly Consumptions. If you're new here, Quarterly Consumptions is a series I run on my channel where every 3 months or every quarter I share with you all of the non-bookish media I've consumed, so all the movies, TV shows, and music I've consumed in those 3 months as kind of a sort of wrap-up and a way for me to share my non-bookish interests with you all. If you'd like to see the first 2 episodes of Quarterly Consumptions, I have a playlist of my Quarterly Consumption series, so definitely check that out to see everything else I have been watching. But without further ado, let's get started with episode 2. So my format for doing these is usually movies, TV shows, and then music. So that's the format I'm going to be sticking with. So I'll go through all of the movies I've seen over the past 3 months, then the TV shows, then the music. The first movie I consumed over the past 3 months was When We First Met. This is a Netflix original movie starring Adam Devine, Alexandra Daddario, Robbie Amell, and Shelley Hennig. This is kind of a rom-com. It's about a guy who meets this girl, but it doesn't go well and he doesn't end up with her. So he starts going back in time to try to redo the first time they met each other so that when he fast forwards, they will be together. Now, I thought the premise seemed kind of cool, but the primary reason I went to watch it was because I'm a huge Shelley Hennig fan, so I'm always kind of paying attention to what she's in, and that's why I watched this movie. But I ended up having a real fun time watching it. If I was to rate it, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10, and that's like, I think, a B or a B+, which is a really good rating. The only thing that kind of did bring down my enjoyment of it was I do remember there were 2 jokes that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I think one of them was transphobic, and I cannot remember the other one, but I remember that those 2 did kind of with me a bit. But outside of that, it was a solid, enjoyable movie. It's not the type of movie that will become my favorite or anything, but if you're having an indoor Saturday night or something and you want something funny to just throw on, I would recommend this movie because it was a great time. And if you are someone who loves rom-coms the way I do, I think you will definitely enjoy this movie. The next movie I consumed over the past 3 months was Black Panther, which I would give a solid 10 out of 10 to. This is one of the most phenomenal movies. It is one of the newest movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the hero is Black Panther, but it is incredible because it is essentially an all-black movie, and by essentially I mean it is literally an all-black movie, and I just love that. I love the unadulterated celebration of all these different African cultures. It was just so lovely, and the themes it dealt with and the messages it carried were just so wonderful, and it kind of showed this world where Africa is not all third world countries. There are high functioning societies in Africa as well, and it talked about these issues dealing with moral responsibility and also the badass black women in that movie. And I do want to point out that all of those black women were dark skinned, as was the main character who Chadwick Boseman plays, and the cast was just phenomenal. Like, Chadwick Boseman and Lupita Nyong'o were the main people in that movie, and there were so many other phenomenal members of that cast, so everything about it is just perfect. And if you aren't a big superhero movie fan, I would still recommend this because the celebration of African cultures and the themes it deals with, I think all of that can overpower the superhero-ness of it. So I recommend this even if you aren't a Marvel person, even if you aren't a superhero person. I still think that this movie is one that you will enjoy because it is just brilliant in every which way. Now, after this, I watched Love, Simon, and so far I have watched Love, Simon 4 times, and I will probably be watching it more. So I think that gives you a good sense of how much I enjoyed it. Love, Simon is the movie that is based off of the book Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli, and Becky is one of my favorite authors, and Simon is an adorable, wonderful YA rom-com, as is the movie version of it. There are a ton of things I love about it. I have an entire video called Why I Love Simon, which I will link either up there or down there for you all to check out if you would want a full comprehensive overview of why I love this movie so much. But essentially, after the first time I watched it, it became my favorite movie of all time. So I think that is enough to show you how much I love it. I do want to note that it's not a movie without problems. I have heard that there are a few transphobic jokes in it, so please do be aware of that, and be aware that it is not the universal queer story for all queer people, because I know some people have been portraying it as that, but no, it's just one narrative, and that's what I love about it, that it brings to light the possibility for queer narratives to be on a big screen. That's one of the many different things I love about it. So no, it's not a universal queer movie, and I want to make sure that we don't market it as that. So yeah, it's a great movie. I absolutely adored it, and I cannot wait to watch it again and again and again till the end of time. The next movie on my list is Thoroughbreds, which I would give an 8.5 out of 10. I went to see this with my girlfriend who really wanted to see it. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I knew it was kind of being marketed as a dark comedy, and that was essentially all I knew about it. It's about these two girls who used to be really good friends, but then they grew apart over time, and one of the girls kind of grew to be very rich and sophisticated when her mom married her stepdad, and the other girl did not have the same experience, but then they reconnect and they find out that this girl doesn't like her stepdad, so they essentially plot to kill him. It is a very interesting movie. It has a sense of dark humor to it, and I know that seems weird considering the premise, but I've heard it compared to Heathers, and I've never watched Heathers, but that seems to be the general comparison for it. So yeah, it is a dark comedy. It's not necessarily horror. I wouldn't go as far as calling it horror because it's not scary in any way. It's just kind of weird. I think that's the only way I can explain it, because even now, like 2 or 3 weeks after I've seen the movie, I don't really know how to explain it other than I felt weird watching it. If you are someone who likes Heathers, or if you are someone who likes horror, or if you like dark comedy, I think you will enjoy this movie. I do like horror, so I think that's a lot of what appealed to me about the movie. It's, again, not my favorite movie of ever, but it was a fun time. I enjoyed going to see it. Please do be aware that there is an animal death in it. I know some people can be sensitive to that, so do be aware of that before watching it. And finally, the last movie I consumed over the past 3 months was A Wrinkle in Time, which I would probably give a 9 out of 10 to. A Wrinkle in Time is a movie based off of the book A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, and I watched this because my good friend Cassie, who is Miss Sassy Cassie here on BookTube, invited me to help host her March book club where they were reading A Wrinkle in Time and watching the movie, and this was something I had wanted to watch. I had wanted to reread it and watch it, but I think being able to host it gave me that little extra push, and we did do a live show about it, so I will link that either up there or down there for you all to watch our 1 hour long live show where we discuss the book and the movie. And this is one of the few times where I really think I did enjoy the movie more than the book, and there were a lot of reasons for that. I've read the book twice, and both times I didn't really enjoy it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars, so it was an okay book. I didn't hate it, but I didn't really enjoy it. But on the other side, I gave the movie a 9 out of 10, so obviously I really enjoyed the movie. First of all, I want to praise the amount of diversity in it. The majority of the cast is made up of powerful women, and furthermore, the majority of the cast is also made up of powerful women of color, which is even bigger. So that was a huge thing that made me want to see it. And the director herself was an African American woman, which is hella cool. I do think this movie is one that would really appeal to kids because it is marketed as a children's book, and I think that's some of the issues I have with it, because it's trying to put this adult concept into a children's book, but I think the movie does that a lot better. It doesn't really cover or go in depth with the science aspect of it, but as it is supposed to be a kid's movie, that's not something that really bothered me. I think it was kind of putting more of an emphasis on the magic and the fantasy of it. Obviously, I didn't give it a 10 out of 10, and that's not because there was anything specific I didn't like about it. It was just, overall, it's not like my favorite movie. It was an enjoyable movie. I enjoyed my time watching it, but it's not one that I would consider my favorite or anything because it is a kid's movie, so it definitely would appeal to them more. It's very fantasy oriented, it's very magical, the costumes are very bright and colorful, and I love that. I think the ambiance of it was done great, and the themes it talks about were also done really great, and that's one of the things I loved about the movie, the morals and the themes and all of that, and those were also reflected in the book. But personally, I think the fact that it was a little bit more childish for me did make it so that I couldn't totally connect with it. Now, as those were all the movies I watched over the past 3 months, I will now be moving on to TV shows. The first TV show I'm going to be talking about is One Day at a Time. I watched both seasons 1 and season 2 in the past 3 months, and I would give this a solid 9 out of 10. I have an entire video called Why You Should Watch One Day at a Time, so I'll link that either up there or down there for you to get a full comprehensive overview of all of my thoughts on it. But that was made after season 1 and before season 2, so there are a bunch more things that I love with it now. But before I do talk about that, the reason I have docked 1 point off of this show is because it's a show that features an all-Cuban family, but none of the actors or actresses who have been casted in the show are actually Cuban. They are of other Latinx descents, and that was an issue the casting department made, and I think that that's something that we do need to consider and we do need to call out, because racial ethnicities and such are not interchangeable. So that is an issue that the casting people made when casting this show. But that being said, I do really enjoy the show for a variety of reasons. First of all, the fact that all of the main cast is Latinx, I think, is a huge part of it, and it deals with such important themes. It's so intersectionally feminist, and the mother, Penelope, is a veteran, and she is now dealing with PTS, and she is dealing with depression and anxiety, and there is a great scene with her depression and anxiety in season 2. But there's also a very triggering episode episode with it, so do be aware of that when watching season 2 of the show. And then the daughter, Elena, is kind of what you would call a social justice warrior, and you find out throughout the show that she is gay and she ends up getting a non-binary girlfriend, so that is another huge wonderful aspect of the show. So overall, there are so many brilliant things that this show has, and I highly recommend it, but do be aware of the issue the casting department made when casting this show. But outside of that, I do think this show is incredible for a variety of reasons, and I absolutely love it, and it's been renewed for a season 3, so I am super excited to watch that. The next show on my list is The Originals. I watched seasons 1 through 4 of The Originals, and I honestly do not know how to rate it because every season I was in a different mood with the show. When I started watching this, I found out that my friend Marta also watched it, so she got a bunch of angry texts from me over the course of me watching this. For those of you who do not know, The Originals is the prequel to The Vampire Diaries, which is kind of like it sounds. It features a bunch of vampires, you know, the Salvatore brothers, Elena. I tried to watch The Vampire Diaries, I never got into it, but something compelled me to watch The Originals. I think it was the fact that Claire Holt was in it because I like her acting, and I did, and I have watched the 4 seasons, and this did take me a while to get through. I started season 1 a really long time ago, then I restarted it recently, and I again don't know what compelled me to do that, but I did, and in the past 3 months I completed the 4 seasons, but that was a bit of a journey that it took me to get here, and I have a lot of issues with it. It is definitely a problematic show, and I want to make that known. I have a lot of issues with a lot of the romance in this show because it seems very manipulative and borderline abusive at much of the time, so do be aware of that going into it. But regardless of that, it's also good trash entertainment, so I have been watching it, and I do love the women characters in the show, and it's set in New Orleans, so I like the incorporation of culture and such into it, and I don't want to take any of that as fact because it definitely has been played up, and it's also combined with vampire and witch and werewolf folklore, so it's not fact, but I do love the inclusion of that. I have very mixed opinions on that show, but regardless, I think I have a good time watching it, and the last season starts in April, I think, in April or May, so I'll probably be watching that, and we'll see how I feel about the conclusion of this show. The next show on my list is season 5B of The Fosters, which I would also give a solid 9 out of 10 to. The Fosters is a brilliant show. It's a freeform show that features a main character who is a foster child, and she ends up getting adopted by an interracial lesbian couple, which first of all, can we praise, who have multiple kids. They have one son who is the biological son of one of the moms, then they have 2 Hispanic twins, then they have this girl and her brother, and this latest season has been incredible. First of all, they dealt with the topic of undocumented immigration, which is such a hard one to tackle, but they handled it so well. As usual, The Fosters is just brilliant. I'm not sure if it was this season or last season, but somewhere recently they introduced a trans character, and I love him, and he's played by an actual trans actor, which is huge and incredible, and there are just so many wonderful things about this latest season. It's hard for me because The Fosters just deals with so many important topics over the course of the show. It's dealt with so much that it's hard for me to remember what happened when, but it is such a powerful show that is always dealing with the important issues, and I adore it with every fiber of my being. But I do want to acknowledge that in this show they had a plotline that struck me as kind of biphobic, or just it kind of erased multigender attraction, because there's a woman who realizes that she might like women but she's married to a man, and she just starts questioning whether she's a lesbian without considering whether she might be pan or bi or fall under any other multigender attraction. And whereas it's true you can just be a lesbian, there's nothing wrong with that sexuality, the fact that it just kind of glossed over any other possibility. This show has a very strict gay or straight behavior, which is the only thing I don't like about it. Everything else about the show I love, but I do wish it could be more inclusive of other queer identities other than just gay and straight, because there are many more queer identities out there. But that being said, every other aspect of this season was great, and there is supposedly going to be a 3-season finale happening in June, and then there is a spin-off with 2 of the main characters, Callie and Mariana, which I am super excited to watch, so I cannot wait to see where this show continues to go, or how it finally ends in June and where it continues to go with the spin-off, but I'm excited to see the direction it heads. And now after that I have Grey's Anatomy, and I watched season 14B of Grey's Anatomy. I'm a huge Grey's Anatomy fan. It is definitely in my top 3 shows, if not my favorite show. I got into Grey's Anatomy recently. My sister was rewatching it and I sat down to watch it with her, and then long story short, my mom and I ended up finishing all 13 seasons, and now we are watching the 14th season live. But unfortunately, I think this show is slowly coming to its demise. There are a lot of good plot lines they're coming up with, and then they're just finishing them off way too quickly, and that just really frustrates me because I feel like they have all these important things they could be doing well and they're just kind of ruining all of it. I think this show is just reaching its end because it's been 14 seasons, and like, how much longer can you continue a show for? So I'm assuming that either this or the next season is likely to be the last one, and I'm not really too disappointed because I'd rather have it close out and still be in somewhat decent shape than just go all the way down the hill. I mean, 14 seasons is a long way to come. They've had their run. And the next show I am going to talk about is one that I think could easily become one of my new favorites of all time if they continue going in this same direction, and that is a new NBC show called Rise. This show has kind of been marketed as the new Glee, but I honestly think it is better than Glee, and that is coming from someone who was a huge Glee fan growing up, so that is saying something about this show. So let's just start off by taking a look at this show. The two main leads are both two people of color. The main female is the girl who voiced Moana in the Moana movie, Auli'i Cravalho. So she plays the main character Lilette, and then there is a trans character. I am not sure if this is played by a trans actor, I would hope so, but there is a trans character, and then there's also a homeless foster student, plus there is a plotline that deals with being gay from what I have grasped so far. I don't want to make any promises about the possibilities of a male-by-male romance. That's what I foresee happening, but I cannot say for sure at this point. And then the lead teacher, who was actually Ted Mosby on How I Met Your Mother, which is another show that I love, his son is dealing with alcoholism. So there's a lot this show deals with, but I think it handles all of those topics really well, and I have absolutely adored watching it. There are quite some stereotypical parts of it in terms of what you would assume from a stereotypical high school drama, but regardless of that, it is still so wonderful and I love watching it. The romance between the two main characters is stereotypical, but I think it's adorable, and I'm like screaming whenever they're on screen and flirting because it is so cute, and I love all of the themes it's dealing with and how it's going about those. But another huge thing that I love is the son who's dealing with alcoholism. There's a specific part I remember from, I think, the 3rd episode where his family and such is all kind of playing basketball and having fun, and he's kind of just going by and he's like going to go inside, but at the last minute he decides to go and play with them. And when I saw that, that really hit home for me. Whereas his issues are caused by alcoholism and mine were caused by depression, a lot of what he's dealing with and his kind of isolation and such is stuff that I could relate to, especially me a few years ago, and it's really hitting home for me, and I really hope that they continue doing such a good job with his character because he's very relatable to how I felt a few years ago when I was in the depths of my depression. So I think that all of the themes this show is handling, they're doing a really good job with it, and I've only seen like 4 episodes, but I can already tell that this show is going to be incredible and I am absolutely loving every minute of it. Then after that I have Station 19, which is the spin-off of Grey's Anatomy. I do not feel comfortable making a full opinion on it because I've only actually seen 1 episode so far. There are 2 or 3 that are out, but I've only gotten around to seeing 1. I do plan to keep watching and see where it goes. I enjoyed the first episode. It wasn't like my favorite thing, but I enjoyed watching it, but I think I'll have to see more of it to really make a full opinion on how I feel about it. Now after that I have season 3 of Shadowhunters, and again I've only seen 1 episode of this. There are again 2 or 3 episodes that are out, but I haven't gotten around to watching those yet. But in general, I don't talk too much about Shadowhunters because I review it on my channel. I will link my season 2 review either up there or down there for you to check out if you're interested, but I don't see a point in talking in depth about it here because I will be doing that later when the entire 3rd season comes out, and there I'll be giving you all of my different thoughts on it as I have with season 1 and season 2. Next on my list is season 2 of Series of Unfortunate Events. This is a Netflix adaptation of A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. I read those books as a kid, and I think I read the first 11 and then I didn't read 12 and 13 or something like that, but I do remember enjoying them, and so I've been watching the Series of Unfortunate Events show, and season 1 came out a while ago and season 2 just came out, so I managed to watch all 10 episodes in a short amount of time. This show definitely has some problematic elements and I notice more and more as I watch it, but I still enjoy it. I think that for a book adaptation, it's doing a pretty good job, and the suspense keeps me going. It's kind of the definition of clickbait, the way it continuously tells you to look away because bad things are gonna happen. That just makes you want to watch it. But I think that's kind of the entire point of what it's trying to do, and I really enjoy watching it, so I'm having a good time. And season 2 ended on a huge cliffhanger, so I'm just sitting here waiting for season 3 now. And now, finally, I'm going to be getting into the music I've consumed over the past 3 months. The first album I consumed was Rainbow by Kesha, which I would give a solid 9.5 out of 10 to. I absolutely adored this album. I know I'm really late to listen to it because it came out forever ago, but what happened was I heard Praying in the background of a Grey's Anatomy episode and I decided to check it out, and long story short, I got sucked into the whole album and I absolutely love it. I listened to some Kesha songs growing up, but those were very mainstream pop, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not usually my go-to genre, but this is definitely something else, and I think she's really come into her sound. This album was so popular, especially because of Kesha's experiences, and her performances of Praying have always been so powerful, and I just admire her so much and admire her strength and her courage. So I'm very glad that I got the chance to listen to this and to support her through this album because it's just wonderful and brilliant, and Praying is easily one of my new favorite songs because it's just so powerful. It's just a very, very powerful album. So I absolutely adore it. I adore all of the songs on it, including Rainbow and including Learn to Let Go. All of them are just so brilliant, and it's just such a great album. Next after that, I would have to go to VHS 2.0 by X Ambassadors. So I kind of picked VHS 2.0, but I kind of listened to all of X Ambassadors' music because I had the chance to see them live a month or so ago, and they were absolutely brilliant. Like, this is easily my favorite concert of all time because it was just so amazing for a variety of reasons. I mean, first of all, just showmanship alone. The lead singer definitely knew what he was doing. He could get the crowd revved up, he could interact with the crowd. Then the talent, the entire band is so talented, and they had these 3 backup singers. All 3 of them were incredibly talented. Then the drummer, the keyboardist, they were all just so wonderfully talented, and of course as well as the lead singer. And then he also gave 2 speeches. One of them was about gun control because this was soon after the Parkland shooting, and then another one was about how your identity is valid whether you're queer, no matter what race you are, no matter what religion. And I mean, the second one flat out made me cry because it was just so powerful, and they are very socially conscious people. I know they've been quite philanthropic in the past, and they have donated to some important causes and performed for some important causes. So I'm very proud to have gone to their show and to support them, and all of these combined together, I mean, how could you not love X Ambassadors? They are talented, they have a good personality, they are socially conscious, so really what more can you ask for? And that kind of leads me to my next album, which is Finding Fletcher by Fletcher, which I would give probably a 9 out of 10 to, and that is because Fletcher was the opening artist for X Ambassadors that night, and I so enjoyed her music as well. She is a very talented artist, and I did not know of her before that night, but that's when I discovered her. And Finding Fletcher is her EP, so she doesn't have a ton of songs out yet, but she has an amazing voice and the music she chooses, and she also has some powerful songs about women empowerment and such, which is great. And she's also a great supporter of the queer community, and she's also an incredibly talented artist, so I loved hearing her EP, and I cannot wait to see what more music she continues to come out with. And now, after Finding Fletcher, I have Expectations by Hayley Kiyoko. As we all know, Hayley Kiyoko is a lesbian icon. She is one of the few mainstream artists who, as a girl, sings about liking girls. So that is huge, and it's kind of fun because it's kind of a throwback to Disney days because she was in movies like Lemonade Mouth and in shows like Wizards of Waverly Place. So we have kind of gotten to see her grow and become this incredible music artist now, and her first album Expectations just came out, and it is a wonderful album. I have listened to some of her music before, but they were all on EPs, but now it is a full album, and it is just absolutely wonderful to be able to listen to this music, and all of it is so unapologetic in how she sings about liking girls, and I just adore that, and I loved listening to it. It is such a great sound, first of all, and she's very talented as an artist, but also kind of the revolutionary aspect of it is huge as well, so it's great for a variety of reasons. opinions. Now that concludes all of the media I have consumed over the past 3 months. I hope you all enjoyed this video and I hope you all are enjoying this series. I have a fun time making these videos, so I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please give it a like and subscribe because that stuff makes me happy. And go ahead and comment down below and let me know if you have seen or listened to any of these movies, TV shows, or music, because I would love to hear about your interests as well. And as usual, all of my social media and my Gucci will in the description below if you'd like to follow me anywhere else. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely day now wherever you are. Please remember, you're beautiful and you deserve the world, and I will see you soon for a brand new video. Goodbye!